What up, fam? It is your favorite brother, your favorite uncle, your favorite cousin, your favorite nephew, your favorite father, your favorite son, your best friend's best friend. It's me, Dr. Larry, and welcome to Living For You, the YouTube channel. This is a safe space, a positive place in which we come together weekly and we gather together and grow together. I grow, you grow, we grow together. We give suggestions, we give feedback, but we also cover topics from entertainment, topics from political topics, topics from what's in the current news going on right now. And of course, we always revert back to the original origins of this channel, which is life coaching and spiritual coaching. For those of you who are my longtime continued followers and subscribers, I love you. I don't even consider you subscribers and followers. I consider you family. With all my heart, I love you. Thank you for continually coming back. Thank you to the new subscribers who's recently subscribed to the channel. We appreciate your following. And if you talk around and mingle with the crew here, you realize that this is a place you'd want to be. This is one of the most positive places you can be on the internet. One of the most safest spaces you can just be you authentically on the internet. So welcome to the new subscribers. I love you. You are now part of the family. Those of you who are in the background who have yet to subscribe, what are you waiting for? Come on in, so hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, join the family, because this is a place you want to be. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the family. For those of you who are new and you'd like to get more about me, I am Dr. Larry. I am a certified life and spiritual coach, amongst a whole bunch of other things, but for the purpose of this channel, I am a life and spiritual coach. And if you want to know more about me, you can actually go to www.liveforyoucoaching.com. That is my business, Live For You Coaching. We specialize in helping people cope through their trauma and move beyond to be able to live a present life in their authentic self. So if you want to know more about that, you can actually go to www.liveforyoucoaching.com. And if you want to follow me on a day-to-day basis where I post things daily, insightful things, educational things, coaching things, spiritual things, you can actually follow me on Instagram and on Facebook at Dr. Larry Smith. That's Dr. Larry Smith on Instagram and on Facebook, or you can go out to www.liveforyoucoaching.com. There's a whole wealth of things you can get involved into there, and even possibly schedule a one-on-one coaching session via Zoom or in person if you're in Southern California with yours truly. Anyway, welcome. I wanted to jump on here because you guys know weekly I do the Iyanla Fix My Life videos. I've been doing recaps, but kind of from a coach's perspective, of course. And so this is no different. This is actually season 8, episode 5 or 6. I think it's 5. It's a family. They come, family of 2 daughters, a father and a mother. And they come to Iyanla. The mother asks for the family to come because she feels as though there is a divide, there is some division, there is some problems underneath. She feels all the problems that her family, in her opinion, seems not to be dealing with. But the interesting thing about it is the person who called the session with Miss Iyanla turned out to be the person who needed the coaching the most. She was the one, according to everybody else, who was the problem because of how she handles things. Iyanla came to the realization that she handles things in an emotionally violent way when she doesn't get her way on certain matters. And so nobody in her family deals with her directly. They kind of don't tell her anything because she doesn't set the environment for people to be approaching her with their feelings. In addition, they just, like I said, they avoid it. They just don't deal with stuff. And then we also find out in the backdrop that the entire family has an issue with drinking. Now they drink socially together, but they drink in excess socially together. And chances are this is a situation that they're using alcohol to deal with the actual problems that they're refusing to directly address in their family. Nevertheless, she talks to everybody, but she first talks to the daughters. And she finds out from the daughters that they are older daughters, I mean like in their 30s, and I think late 20s, early 30s. So these are not just little girls. These are grown women. But due to the pandemic, and the whole premise of the episode, by the way, was supposed to be a family that was broken apart by the pandemic. But what we found out, and what Miss Iyanla stated at the beginning, much of these issues had nothing to do with the pandemic. The pandemic just exacerbated or made bigger issues that were already there. And I know a lot of people out there who are listening to me right now can find themselves in that same predicament, that the pandemic just brought out things that they had to address. If you were in a bad relationship and You and your partner, husband, significant other, wife, spouse, had to be around each other for longer periods of time, and you didn't realize just how much you didn't like each other until you was around each other a whole lot. And we've seen lots of divorces and separations happening in this pandemic moment between 2020 and 2021. Well, that's because there are underlying issues generally that aren't being addressed, as we see with this family. And so the daughters had to move back in. They were in school, they were working, but they wanted moving back in because of the economic strains and issues that they were having. It's usually problematic. I always say, in my personal opinion, that grown children can't be in the house with grown parents for long, because you're developing, unless there's this weird toxic situation in which the parent controls everything, or in the reverse, the child controls everything. It's a very difficult situation for grown parents and grown children to be in the house, because they're growing into themselves. And as they grow into themselves, they tend to change and tend to have different expectations for themselves, the world around them, and people in their lives. The problem is, when we're in families, we set out these typecasts or these roles that we play in families. Everybody has a role. Every child, every person in the family has a role. And what happens is, once that role starts to be too uncomfortable, and the expectations of the people who want them to stay in that role starts to change, you begin to have issues. You begin to see that your family will always hold you to whoever you are. The saying is true. Your mom might say, "You will always be my little boy," or "You will always be my little girl," "You will always be my baby." That is kind of a truthful statement, because in their minds, you are who they raised, you are what they created, but they fail to realize that just like they had to grow and expand and become something different than who they were when they were in their mom's house, mom and dad's house, you have the same experiences. You're growing and becoming who you are, and that might not look familiar to the person who they raised you to be, for good or for worse. It depends on how you see it. So that automatically sets up an environment, and so we do see the daughters having that environment. As long as they do what their mother wants them to do, they're allowed to stay in the house. But even when they don't do, she ignores them and acts as if they don't exist. Like, you're in the same roof. And Ms. Iyanla pointed this out too. How are you in the same roof with somebody and you're acting as if you do not see that person? That is emotionally violent, but it's also just ridiculous, right? But that's how things are handled. And they love their mother enough not to upset her, and they don't want to experience either her wrath or her hurt. Because sometimes, and we've seen the same thing in this case too, mothers, you're good at this. You know that your children love you beyond a doubt. You know that we have a connection to you beyond a doubt. And the last thing any respectable child wants to do is hurt their mother. So what winds up happening is mothers use this guilt trip thing that, "Oh, I'm so hurt. Oh, I'm so hurt because of what you're doing," in order to get you to do what they want you to do. Mothers, that shouldn't be happening. That is emotionally violent, and it's also manipulation. It's manipulation, and you shouldn't be manipulating your kids, let alone anybody around. You shouldn't be trying to intentionally manipulate people in general. Nevertheless, so the mother has been doing that, so we find that out. And so then Miss Iyanla goes and she interviews and discusses with the husband. And I saw it quickly, Miss Iyanla saw it quickly. That husband had no clue why he was there. He thought he was in, my marriage isn't perfect, but it ain't bad. It's okay. I love my wife. She even gave them a number from 1 to 5. The wife said 3. She was kind of like, I'm either here, I'm not there, I'm there, I'm not. It was either way for her. But the husband was like, "Oh, we're good 4, maybe a low 4, a 4, low 5. We good." He had no clue what the wife was feeling. He had no clue what was going on in their relationship and in their life and with the kids and all that stuff. He was completely clueless from it all. And the interesting thing about it is that happens so often. But the main reason that happens in relationships and in families, any type of relationship, is that there's no communication. If you're not expressing how you feel implicitly, explicitly, directly, and being open, honest, and vulnerable with the person you're with or with the people you're sharing your relationship with, they're not going to know. Especially if you're a person who continues to just kind of walk around as though there's nothing wrong with you. People are just going to look at you for face value, because remember, it is impossible for most humans to read hearts and minds. And because of that, they're going to go by what you present in front of them. And if you present the happy face as though everything's okay, in their minds, everything's okay. And they're not going to question that generally. Most people, not that they're selfish, they're just involved in the movement of life. Most people don't take time to ask multiple questions about themselves in the how other people perceive them. And part of the reason behind that is because most people don't want to know how people perceive them. Okay, that's the real answer. And so we get to a place where we're, we see that the husband didn't even know he was there. So Miss Iyanla had to send him away to make sure that he wanted to be there, because he was completely clueless as to why he was there. And so as we go further, we find out a lot of things about this family. Like I said, we found out that there's a history of drinking on both sides of the family, the mother and the father, that goes back to their parents. So they brought that into it. And we also saw that there is an issue of abandonment and not being able to deal with your stuff, not targeting stuff directly, which is another generational pathological thing that they brought down, that their daughters were picking up. Another thing that was a side note, but it was a major side note, and the family treated it as though it wasn't a major side note, was that early in the morning, they got in there like at 9, 10 o'clock, and early in the morning, one of the daughters blew a 0.2 plus breathalyzer test. Drunk, right? So apparently they had spoken about the drinking in the pre-stuff that we don't see on TV. So I assume Miss Iyanla said, well, give them alcohol and drug tests so that we know they come here ready to work and in a sober place. One of the daughters was drunk enough not to even shouldn't be driving anywhere. And you wonder, well, why are you dealing with that? And it's kind of like I said, they use it as a coping thing. It makes them feel good. Whatever they need to feel good about something, or feel confident in a certain way, or be able to deal with life and stuff and each other and emotions and relationships and stuff, situationships, they drink. The entire family had that apparently as an issue. And the father and that daughter apparently had it heavier than anybody else. I forgot the daughter. It's the one with the glasses. I forgot her name. But it's a very interesting dynamic. And so Miss Iyanla gets them to do the work. She does the work with them. She goes through the different processes and her different exercises with them. But I think it's important that we know. Like I said, this episode wasn't a full episode for me, but it had interesting things that could be useful for us as viewers and as just people who want to be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically healthy. You got to confront stuff. We all, every time in our lives, have situations in which if we don't confront them, they will grow and manifest and affect other things into our lives. I believe issues like that are cancerous, and all they do is continue to grow. And the more, what happens is negativity attracts negativity. And so the more, if you're not dealing with the original negativity in your life and you're just allowing it to stay there dormant, it's going to attract other negativity and it's going to feed it and it's going to grow. Eckhart Tolle calls that the pain body. That's the pain body. That's that thing that just loves the negativity, that thing that just loves the drama, that thing that just loves the pain and the issues, and it feeds and thrives and feasts on those types of things. And so you start to acquire unintentionally and sometimes intentionally those things in your life that are going to give you more of a fullness in your pain body, in your cancerous negative stuff that you're letting lie dormant without addressing directly in your life. And so we kind of see that this family didn't do that, and they were falling apart, but in their minds, not really, they didn't really know where they were. And what I gather is that most families are like that. There are a lot of families in the situation in which they don't directly address things, they don't communicate enough, they don't deal with stuff, and they just exist. And then as they grow older, sometimes parents and children have issues, or siblings have issues with one another, and they're like, where did this come from? I've always had these feelings. I've always had these thoughts. I've always was in this place. We just never dealt with it. And that, like I said, that happens a lot, more often than you think, because most time we just fall into our respective roles in our families, in our relationships, and we just exist in those and ignore everything that needs to be dealt with in order to have healing and an actual healthy relationship. Raise your hand if you actually have a relationship that by those standards you can call healthy. Communication is not just yelling at each other when you're upset. Communication is not just talking at each other, talking over each other, or talking about the moon or the weather on TV shows. Communication is talking about what's meaningful to keep your relationship sustained. How many people have actual communication lives like that in their relationships or in their families? How many people have had resentment in families that they haven't ever addressed? And they've just allowed them to just exist randomly and wild as though they're not affected by them. But in reality, you are. If you live in a situation where you're not going around your family, Why aren't you going around your family? There's resentment, things that you haven't addressed. It could even be trauma, an actual trauma situation that has never been dealt with, talked about, or even hinted at being talked about by your family. So you have to deal with those things. And substance abuse like alcohol and drugs and other things don't help. Other lavish things and other, I guess you would say, vices, or not want to call them vices, but things people do to try to hide their own dealings with stuff. Those things don't help because it just exacerbates them and it creates other problems that are going to have to be dealt with later on. So yeah, so like I said, this episode didn't give me a lot. It seemed like they kind of put it together to have an extra episode. But at the end of the day, it does give us this conversation that we can have in families. You can communicate. You should be able to be open and honest. That's even child to parent. There shouldn't be a barrier on communication because at least it's out there and it's open and it can be dealt with on both lines. There has to be open honesty in marriages, in relationships, in families, in anything that you're working with other people. You have to be able to communicate your authentic feelings and really be on the same page. Marriages need to be on the same page. This is why couples need to talk. Couples need to know exactly how their partner is feeling so that they're able to communicate that. But anyway, my light went off. One of my lights went off. So I guess we'll take that as that's it. That's all I got to say. Not much to this particular video. But I'll be back here next week. There'll be other videos this week, so stay tuned. You're going to get other stuff here on this channel. As we always come here, we talk, we love, we enjoy each other. Let's continue to do that. Let's grow this network. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Share the videos and convince your friends and family and loved ones to subscribe so that they can get this good stuff too. As I always say, I love you, love you, love you, and I will see you all in the next video.